83210. You can talk.
Thanks. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar for cooperatives. The topic of today's webinar is annual submission of information and compliance requirements of annual financial statements using iXBRL. My name is Alma Pinkham, and I will be the facilitator and presenter for today's program. The presentation will be followed with a questions and answer session. A few of my colleagues will be joining me to assist with answering the questions. These will be Aubrey Morifi and Mabusi Moyeti, who are both managers in the cooperatives unit, as well as Henny Viljoen, who is an iXBRL specialist from the CIPC Corporate Disclosure, Regulation and Compliance Unit. The recording of the webinar will remain on YouTube. If you want to view it again, you are welcome to do so at a later stage. You can still use the same link that was available for today's webinar. During the webinar, you are welcome to post your questions related to today's topic under comments. We will respond to these questions after the presentation. If you have questions that are not related to the topic, please log an inquiry on the CIPC website inquiry system or send a message on CIPC Facebook with Messenger, as we will not be answering questions not related to today's topic. Lastly, please note, we will be unable to provide attendees with letters of attendance, as you do not need to register for these sessions, and we are unable to get an attendance list for the session. Thank you. With that, we'll start with the presentation. We'll have a quick look at CIPC, who we are and what our objectives are. CIPC was brought into existence by the Companies Act of 2008. In terms of Section 1851 of the Companies Act, the Commission is established as a juristic person to function as an organ of state within the public administration, but as an institution outside of the public service. If we look at CIPC, the two main sections, on the one side, businesses, which include companies, cooperatives, and CCs. On the other hand, CIPC have intellectual property, which is about innovation and creativity, with the different units being patents, designs, trademarks, and copyrights. The objectives of CIPC are the registration of companies, cooperatives, and intellectual property rights, and the maintenance thereof. Maintenance includes matters such as changes to directors, auditors, addresses, financial year, changes to company memorandum of incorporation, and amendments to cooperative constitutions. It includes annual returns, which is what we're also speaking about today, and then deregistrations. Further, we do disclosure of information on our registers. We enforce the relevant legislation, promote education and awareness of the companies and intellectual property law, licensing of business rescue practitioners, monitoring compliance with and contravention of financial reporting standards, and making recommendations thereto. Lastly, we report, research, and advise the Minister on matters of national policy relating to company and intellectual property law. If we look at the purpose and format of a presentation of today, the Companies Act of 2005, hereafter referred to as the Act, has been amended by the Cooperatives Act of 2005, has been amended by the Cooperative Amendments Act of 2013, and I'll refer to it as the Amendments Act. The Amendments Act has to be read with the Act. New regulations and principles of good governance replace the previous regulations. It is important that members and management of every cooperative study the Act, regulations, and principles of good governance. All of these are available on the CIPC website. You can download it and print it as well. One of CIPC's regulatory functions is to ensure compliance with the provisions of the Act. The purpose of this presentation is to provide information on annual submission of information and compliance requirements of annual financial statements using iXBRL to assist cooperatives to comply to the Cooperatives Act. The presentation will focus on the categories of co-ops, the financial reporting framework, documents to be submitted, prescribed annual return fees, and the implementation date of these. We first start by looking at the categories of co-ops, the annual fee payments and annual submission requirements. The Act makes provision that cooperatives are divided into categories A, B, or C according to the form, that is, whether they're primary, secondary, tertiary, or the national apex. And in the case of primary cooperative, the size of the cooperatives in terms of the annual revenue or turnover. The category determines, amongst other matters, the forms, the fees, and the reports cooperatives have to submit to CIPC annually. Primary cooperatives are divided into category A1 for co-ops with an annual revenue of less than R1 million. Category A2 are co-ops with an annual revenue between R1 million and R10 million. Category B is annual revenue of R10 million and more, but less than 25 million. Category C primary co-ops have an annual revenue of 25 million rand or more. All secondary, tertiary co-ops and the national apex co-op fall within category C. Then let's look at the annual submission and annual fee payments as per section 26A of the Act. Included in the regulations are annual fee amounts payable to CIPC by different categories of cooperatives. Fee amounts differ from the amounts payable by companies and CCs. Reference to annual revenue or turnover means the gross value of economic benefits received by a cooperative as a result of its ordinary activities in a financial year. If we look at the categories, this table on the left-hand side shows the annual revenue amounts for the different categories, and then there are two columns. The first column is the fee that is payable by the category co-op, and then there's a second column that shows the penalty fee. In other words, if you did not pay the fee that's in the first column by the due date, then you also have to pay the second fee that's in this last column. So for category A primary co-ops, that's very small co-ops. As we said, their revenue or annual revenue is less than R1 million. Their amount is 50 Rand, which is payable by 30 days after the date on which they were registered. If they don't pay within that time, they'll pay the additional 100 Rand. Then category 2A is also 50 Rand, is the normal fee. If you pay it late, there's an additional 100 Rand to be paid. Category B is for co-ops that have an annual revenue more than 10 million Rand or 10 million and less than 25 million. The normal fee is 450 and the penalty is 600 Rand. Category C primary co-ops pay a fee of 3,000 Rand per year and the penalty, if paid late, is 4,000. Then we get to category C for all secondary co-ops, tertiary co-ops, and the national apex co-op. If their revenue is less than 25 million Rand a year, the payable amount is 450 and the penalty is 600. If their revenue is more than 25 million, then their fee is 3,000 Rand and the penalty is 4,000 Rand. Then about record keeping. We want to remind co-ops that they must always keep records at their offices. In terms of the Act, you must keep accounting records, which include all business transactions of members and non-members. The registered constitution must be kept at the office, as well as all rules the co-op make and any amendments to these documents. Minutes of general meetings and director meetings must be kept. If a co-op has a supervisory committee, they must keep minutes of their meetings. There must be a list of members, a register of directors, and a register of directors and employees' interest in contracts or undertakings. Accounting records and financial statements must be kept for at least 5 years or a longer period determined by the minister. At the moment, the period is 5 years at least. A director or a co-op that fails to comply to the record-keeping requirements is guilty of an offence. Then cooperatives have certain documents that they must submit annually. And it also depends on the category of cooperative. If we look at category A1, they must submit a Form Co-op 7 and a Co-op 8 form, as well as Form Co-op 15.1, which is an income statement and balance sheet, as well as an annual report. The question is, by whom should these form statements and reports be completed? In the case of a category A, it's the directors of a cooperative. Then A2 must also submit a Co-op 7 and 8. Their financial statement form is a Co-op 15.2, and they also submit the annual report. These documents are also completed by the directors. A primary Co-op B must submit a Co-op 4 form, a Co-op 7 form, and a Co-op 8 form. They must have an independently reviewed financial statements and an independently reviewed report, and all of these are completed by an independent reviewer. Primary C as co-ops, as well as secondary co-ops, tertiary co-ops, and the National Apex co-op. These must all submit a Co-op 4 form, 7 form, and 8 form, as well as audited financial statements, an audited report, and these must all be done by the auditor of a cooperative. Now the question is, what does the different report names mean? In category A, we said they have to submit an annual report. The annual report is done by the board of directors and contains the financial statements, which are drafted by the board on the form 15.1, and a social report and a management decisions report. Category B must have an independent reviewed report. It's a report by an independent reviewer that examined and evaluated the financial statements, social report, and management decisions report. An independent reviewer means an accounting officer in terms of a Closed Corporations Act, a registered auditor, or a member in good standing in terms of Section 33 of the Accounting Profession Act. Category C, co-ops must have an audited report. It's a report by the auditor after he has examined and evaluated the financial statements, social report, and management decisions report. The social report definition is a report that assesses the social impact and ethical performance of a cooperative in relation to the stated vision, mission, and goals stated in the Constitution. I want to point out that one will see that there are two terms used for in this definition. The one is social impact, and the other one is ethical performance. Social impact, to give a bit of context there too, a co-op has a social responsibility as part of the cooperative principles and requires a cooperative to work for sustainable development of their communities through policies approved by the members. An ethical performance of a cooperative requires the directors, the managers, the employees, and the members of a cooperative to apply ethical values. Ethical values are standards describing behavior of a person and is critical to corporate governance. The following are values of ethical behavior. It's matters such as honesty, accountability, integrity, trustworthiness, and keeping promises, loyalty, fairness, concern and respect for others, being law-abiding, committing to excellence, protecting the good reputation of a cooperative and morale of its members, its employees, and management, and then having principled leadership and behavior. Then if we do speak about the management decisions report, it's a report that assesses the cooperative's compliance with all legal requirements and requirements in its constitution. Annual submissions and iXBRL. Some cooperatives will in the near future be required to submit annual financial statements via the iXBRL program on CIPC's website. We anticipate to launch the pilot filing project by 1 April 2022 and monitor how the system works and challenges experienced. The question is which cooperatives will have to submit their annual financial statements by iXBRL. Only cooperatives that are required to be audited, in other words, category C primary co-ops, as well as all secondary, tertiary co-ops and the national apex co-op, will have to submit annual financial statements to CIPC in electronic format via iXBRL. iXBRL usage will be available for independently reviewed annual financial statements, meaning category B primary cooperatives. However, it shall not be mandatory. If we look at the financial compliance in the digital era and iXBRL, CIPC embraces international financial best practices and the impact of the use of iXBRL when submitting annual financial statements online. iXBRL is an inline extensible business reporting language for electronic communication of business information, which was developed to improve the communication of financial data online and is used in a number of countries. iXBRL simplifies how people use, share, and analyze financial data. It is a computer language that will be required to transfer the audited annual financial statements of category C primary cooperatives, all secondary and tertiary cooperatives, and the national apex cooperative to CIPC. iXBRL allows iXBRL documents to be presented in a format that is readable both by computers and humans. Digital reporting in the iXBRL format assists businesses to file their annual financial statements while moving from paper or PDF reporting to a more structured format. For more information, consult our website. There are frequently asked questions under iXBRL program, or you can email queries to xbrl@cipc.co.za. To find the iXBRL program on our website, if you open the website on the home page, there's a line at the top, a blue line that have got different headings. And on the far right-hand side, you will find iXBRL program. We just want to remind cooperatives that all their queries, they should lodge preferably through the CIPC website. To find the query resolution system, we call QRS, just click on inquiries on the home page and log your query. The cooperative unit will come back to you. Then please keep an eye on the CIPC notices that are regularly published on our website. It will mean you have to visit our website from time to time and just check our notices. There may be something that is new or a new requirement of CIPC which is applicable to your cooperative. With that, we get to the end of the presentation and to our questions and answers. I'm just going to go out of this presentation that we can look at your questions and answers.
Okay, we don't really have questions related to cooperative annual returns. Mostly are related to companies and close corporations.
Okay.
So there's one from Jessica Naika saying, what if no funding was received in that financial year?
Okay, I don't think funding as such is is a requirement to, you see, there's, you in any case have to submit the documents. So one, complete what is applicable on your financial statements, because you may still be doing business, but even if you're not, Aubrey, am I correct? You must still complete the documents and submit?
True.
Okay. Thanks. Is there any other question relating to today's subject?
No, most of them are company related, but not cooperatives.
Okay. Okay. We do not take questions that is not related to the subject. So if there is nothing else, then we will rather close the session, but we will ask you, please log your queries on the CIPC website regarding your CCs and companies. And otherwise, if you want to, you can also try our Facebook page. One can, on the messenger system, also send your queries, and people will respond to that. Or otherwise, you can call our call center. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us today. We really appreciate it, and we hope that you have been able to gain some new information. With that, I'll be closing today's session. Have a good day. Bye-bye.